All right, guys, so kind of just rambling a little bit today. I wanted to talk about something I see on Instagram a lot. I saw a specific post. I won't mention who it was, but sometimes with these videos, it's just kind of a place where I can give my thoughts on something, and it doesn't have to be really formal. That's kind of what this is, because as I've mentioned on other podcasts, I really don't have much of an interest in making a video on like how to squat or something that's super basic. The topics I want to talk about typically are things where I don't hear people talk about them as much, or I have a particular opinion on it, or I just find it interesting, which is usually at this point not really the basics. So what I wanted to talk about today is when a lot of people, and they do so meaning well, and you see this actually, it's probably the more common opinion you see among coaches and some influencers, which is to say, just focus on yourself. Who cares what X is doing? Who cares if this person is natty or not? Just focus on yourself. And I first want to say that I understand where that mindset comes from. I also realize that I'm looking at myself in this shirt and my pale face and the background, and I'm just blending in perfectly. So I'm going to have to work on getting a tan. But in any case, so when people say that, I think it obviously comes from a good place. And I think the general message, of course, is meant to be like, look, you can't necessarily change your genetics, or you really shouldn't focus on somebody else's, what's that quote? It says comparison is the thief of joy, or comparison is the thief of happiness, something like that. And I do understand that. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I think in general, you're going to have, there's always going to be somebody who's bigger than you, who's stronger than you, who's better looking than you, who's richer than you. And so if you're always comparing to other people in that sense, obviously that can lead to problems, right? So in that sense, you should set goals for yourself, and then you should work to achieve those goals. And then when you do, set greater goals, and et cetera from there. Now, I would say, though, that it is naive to act like these other people don't matter. And this goes for all areas of life, not fitness. And I do think it's a little silly and naive when people say, well, it doesn't matter if that person, let's just say using gear, right? Because that's one of the easiest ones. That's the one we hear all the time. Who cares if this person is natty? That doesn't affect you. However, I think that there are clear examples where that does affect you, okay? So on a societal level, obviously that does affect one's perceptions, right? You could say this with Photoshop. You could say this with women, wearing tons of makeup in magazines. You could say this for men or women using steroids. It does matter because it changes the overall perception of what is achievable, and it changes a lot as far as like for that individual person's goals as far as what they can achieve. So the example I've given before is like, when I grew up and I was on the T Nation forums, and I would see this guy, Christian Thibodeau, who was 5'9", 240 pounds, shredded, and I had no idea that this guy was on steroids. That's the level of ignorance that is going on with people who are unaccustomed to, the fitness industry. They just really have no idea. They might think, well, Michael Hearn could be natural because Ronnie Coleman is steroids, and he's not Ronnie Coleman, so therefore it's achievable naturally. People don't have a real grasp on that. When I think of what my goal was, it was probably 40 pounds away, or I'm 40 pounds away now of muscle from what my original goal was. And part of that is genetics, of course, and part of that's not wanting to take a bunch of drugs and things like that. But the point is, it absolutely does matter, because if we had, let's just say nobody could ever use gear, our perception of what is possible would be different, and we would have more realistic goals. And there are countless naturals out there who are upset, or they have to hit that period where they say, oh wow, what I thought was achievable is not. And then they also have to deal with all the people who think that they are unimpressive because they don't understand. And look, that is an ego thing, right? That is an insecurity. But it's also a real issue that people have to deal with, where somebody says, well, why don't you look like that then? That is a constant frustration among people, because it's like, well, no, maybe I've actually put in a ton of work. Maybe I know what I'm talking about. But the average person will see somebody who is enhanced, and they just won't know. Now, you might say, like I said, oh, that's ego, that's insecurity. However, this is where that actually matters, okay? A lot of the people who say this are coaches. Well, guess what? When somebody is deciding who they want to coach them, they will look at, oftentimes it's if they think they can have a rapport with them. That's actually one of the most important things for developing a good coaching relationship. However, a huge factor is what that person looks like. So you might be saying, well, who cares who's natural and who's not, and who cares, whatever. But the reality is, you're going to get probably fewer clients if you don't look as good as somebody else. Now, of course, again, somebody could always look better. Hopefully people are logical enough to realize that just because somebody looks great doesn't mean they know what they're doing. But especially in this industry, it does matter. It does matter for your business, but not just this industry, but just in life. We live in a hierarchical society. Okay. And, okay, let's say you're choosing a dating partner. Okay. Yeah, obviously there's this connection, but you chose that person in part based on how they look. And how did that person look relative, to your perceptions of other people? We gauge, even just unconsciously, a lot about other people and other places based on the comparison to other things. Why did you choose Verizon over T-Mobile? Why did, when Burger King started implementing X, McDonald's saw that, and by comparison, they wanted to do better and they implemented Y? Or even, again, back to the fitness industry. When people see, oh, wow, this person who's doing really well on YouTube is doing Natty or Not videos, or they're doing this kind of intro, or they're saying this, you are comparing yourself to them, and you're saying, well, I'm not doing that, and I'm not succeeding as much, so let me start implementing what they're doing, or look at my growth compared to their growth. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm just crapping on what these people are saying. I do think it is a healthy mindset to focus on yourself, focus on your goals, and not compare them to other people, because it will be unhealthy as far as if you are comparing, let's say, your rate of progress to somebody else. But I think it's very naive to say, why do you care who's natural? Or why are you caring what this person is doing? When even if you're not recognizing it, you subconsciously do care, because it affects what you do. It affects the choices that you make. And again, I'm obviously applying this to the fitness industry here, but this applies to pretty much all of life. We are constantly making comparisons between ourselves and others, but also to other things we choose, both interpersonal relationships, products, things that we do in our lives. And while I keep saying it again, I agree with a lot of what that message is. Even as far as even just like gossip and people making videos on other people specifically and talking crap, obviously some people want to give opinions. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, just going out of your way to be in other people's business. You could say, well, why do you care what that person is doing? That's fine. I agree with that. But again, I do think it's naive to say that it doesn't matter at all, what somebody else is doing, or if somebody's natural, whatever. I think you have to be pragmatic and realize that sometimes it does matter, and we will always make comparisons, and that's fine. That's a reasonable thing to do. It's a logical thing to do. It would be irrational to go about life not making comparisons and weighing options and choosing. But that's why it matters, how you might look if you're a coach, or how much money you make if you're a financial advisor. These things do matter, right? Because people are going to judge you based on that, right or wrong. And a lot of times it's right. I'm not going to go to a financial advisor who is poor. I'm going to make a comparison between him and other people. And also I'm going to make a comparison between their clients and how they're doing. So a lot of life is about that. And that's just kind of how it is. So this is just a little ramble, just something I saw. I wanted to make a little rant on. Tell me if you guys disagree with this stance, if you agree. Either way, leave a comment down below. Appreciate a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you want more ranty videos on other topics, or of course, more of the Brains and Gains podcast. I appreciate it.